When my mother-in-law saw me resting, she immediately turned red. "What are you doing right now? It's really despicable how you're slacking off like this. That's why I hate low-level women like you." Although she kept her voice down so her friends wouldn't hear, my mother-in-law hurled many insults at me. I just looked down and waited for the storm to pass. Then the wife of the company president came over, her face pale. "Wife of the president? Oh, you. How can you speak to her like that? My name is Alyssa, a 26-year-old homemaker. I met my husband Jim through a friend's introduction. He was refreshing, kind, with a lovely smile, and the epitome of a good young man. We hit it off immediately, and soon after, we started dating. Our relationship went smoothly, and Jim proposed to me, leading us to marriage. I was so happy to be married to the man I loved. We greeted each other's parents, held our wedding, and went on our honeymoon. After that, we enjoyed a happy newlywed life. However, about a year into our marriage, Jim had to go on a long business trip abroad. The period was for 1 year. However, working overseas had been one of Jim's dreams. Therefore, he studied Spanish every day. I was happy when the overseas assignment was confirmed because I had seen his efforts. However, I found out I was pregnant around the same time. Jim and I were worried. Being alone for a year during pregnancy was indeed daunting. I thought about going to my mother's place, but she had just remarried recently. So, I didn't want to bother her. Then Jim suggested, "How about staying with my mother for a year? She's been alone since my father passed away last year. If my mom is there, she can help with the household, which would be reassuring for you, right?" I thought it was a very good suggestion. At that time, I had a good impression of my mother-in-law. So, Jim and I decided to visit and discuss the temporary cohabitation with her. My mother-in-law happily agreed with a smile. I thought I was truly blessed to have such a kind mother-in-law. Then we terminated our rental lease, moved our belongings to her house, and started living together. A few days later, Jim left for his business trip to Spain. My mother-in-law and I saw him off and returned home. But as soon as we got home, my mother-in-law's demeanor completely changed. "Alyssa, I've been watching you these past few days, and you're utterly hopeless. Huh? Having such a useless daughter-in-law in the house is the worst. I feel sorry for Jim. Maybe he hated you so much that he fled overseas." That kind of thing to say. Her previously kind smile disappeared, and she started to verbally abuse me. "Someone like you doesn't deserve Jim. Why does my precious son, whom I raised with so much care, have to marry someone like you?" It seemed that she adored her only son, who was excellent. He had graduated from a prestigious university and was employed at a large company. So, to her, he was a source of pride, always praised by the neighbors. Thus, she felt like I had stolen her son through marriage, and actually harbored resentment towards me. "You seduced my son, you awful woman. I hate the idea of your child, but I will take responsibility for raising my grandson, who has Jim's genes." It was unclear whether she was serious or joking, but she always said such things. At first, I thought it was just to pass the time and that the harassment might stop eventually. But she was persistent. It felt like she really might separate me from my husband and take away our unborn child. I wanted to discuss this with Jim, but he was quite busy with his unfamiliar overseas assignment, so I couldn't consult him. Moreover, whenever she contacted Jim, she praised me, so he wouldn't find out about the harassment. This made it likely that even if I consulted him, he wouldn't believe me. However, the harassment from my mother-in-law continued daily. It happened during a family gathering. Alyssa, since you're not part of my family, once everyone's meal is ready, please eat alone in the kitchen. By saying that, she kept me busy yet excluded me from the group. Well, for me, being alone in the kitchen was preferable as it spared me from seeing her face. However, as time passed, the physical strain from the harassment became unbearable. Especially since I was pregnant, as the days went on. Morning sickness and other symptoms made me feel unwell. This made cooking and cleaning very difficult. But my mother-in-law showed no mercy. Geez. You're really slow. How long are you going to take to clean? I'm sorry, but I'm having severe morning sickness. Huh? Don't make excuses. But, didn't you also have a hard time when you were pregnant? Don't compare me to an ordinary person like you. Pregnancy is not an illness. Stop slacking and get moving. My mother-in-law continued to exploit me without consideration for my health. And she also berated my mother. Is your dullness inherited from your mother? What do you mean by that? You were raised by a single mother, right? Too dull, so your father ran away, didn't he? It's just awful. How can she say such heartless things? My father passed away from illness when I was 13. My mother raised me on her own since then. Oh, was that so? You must have been quite poor then. No wonder you lack class. You really are not a match for Jim. It's a mystery why he married such a disappointing woman like you. My mother-in-law just wanted to torment me. I couldn't help but get emotional. Please stop this. It's me you dislike, not my mother, right? My mother has worked honorably and raised me well. And she just remarried recently and is living happily. Please stop insulting my mother. Humph. What? You really are a barbaric, classless woman. It's because you act so presumptuously that your mother gets ridiculed. If you're going to blame someone, blame your own incompetence. I was reaching my limit. Being exposed to stress every day in my pregnant state was truly torturous. Why did my mother-in-law insult me so much? It's hard to believe we're the same species. Even though I fought back and argued, my mother-in-law continued to boss me around relentlessly. Once, I got so fed up that I stopped doing chores and locked myself in my room. But my mother-in-law blocked the doorway to prevent me from going to the bathroom. Even as I desperately pleaded for her to open the door, she just laughed maliciously. If you want me to open it, apologize to me sincerely. You're 100 years too early to defy me. You are my slave and my maid. So just keep doing as I say. I had no choice but to desperately apologize to her, and when she finally opened the door, I was nearly at my limit. It was truly a harrowing experience. My mother-in-law laughed loudly at me, who rushed to the bathroom, sweating profusely. It's too dangerous to confront this person seriously. I thought it best to just endure her torment and behave submissively. Some days later, my mother-in-law mentioned that several guests, including the wife of the company president, were coming over. We have some important guests visiting today, including the wife of the company president. I'm sure they would be offended if they had to talk to a poor person like you. So, please don't interfere. As usual, my mother-in-law continued to berate me. But my husband would be returning in a few months. Until then, it seemed safer to keep quiet and do as she said. Understood. What should I do? Well, for now, could you clean every nook and cranny of the house? And of course, you must prepare the coffee and sweets, okay? My mother-in-law said that with a triumphant expression. How much more would she need to harass me to be satisfied? I rushed to the department store to buy the sweets she had ordered. After returning home, I prepared high-quality dishes and perfectly set up the coffee. After a while, the wife of the company president and her entourage arrived. My mother-in-law greeted her friends with a broad smile. However, her smile was not one of genuine friendship but rather seemed sycophantic. It felt like she was friendly with those people because she benefited from it. Can such relationships truly be called friendships? I wondered about that, but since it involved my mother-in-law, I didn't dwell on that and focused on my tasks. Alyssa, could you please prepare the sweets and coffee quickly? Yes, right away. I hurriedly served the coffee and sweets to her friends. I didn't know who was who since it was my first time meeting them, but I interacted with them politely to avoid any rudeness. Thank you. Her friends thanked me. You're pregnant, aren't you? It must be exciting to have a child soon. Yes. The baby kicks a lot, so it seems like the baby is eager to come out. I'm sure a cute and healthy child will be born. They were kind and classy people, and I thought they were wonderful. But I felt my mother-in-law's gaze on me, so I quickly moved away from the scene. She was probably glaring at me not to do anything inappropriate. Please enjoy your time. Saying that, I left the room. After that, I continued cleaning the house as my mother-in-law had instructed. Being pregnant, it was quite difficult, since it wasn't good for my health to keep going without breaks. I went to the kitchen to drink something and take a break. Just then, I ran into my mother-in-law as she was carrying the trash and empty plates. Seeing me resting, she immediately turned red in the face. What are you doing now? Slacking off like that really shows what a dishonest woman you are. That's why I dislike low-level women like you. Although she kept her voice low so her friends wouldn't hear, she hurled many insults at me. I just looked down, waiting for the storm to pass. Then, the wife of the company president came over, her face pale. You. How can you talk to someone like that? Upon hearing the voice, my mother-in-law turned around and panicked. Oh. Madam. What brings you here? It seems this woman was the wife of the company's president. I was just looking to use the restroom. Then I saw you hurling terrible words at her. I'm terribly sorry. This person is my daughter-in-law. She has many shortcomings, so I was just guiding her. The wife of the president widened her eyes in surprise. Don't you not know who this person is? Excuse me. She is the daughter of the woman who runs the famous company. What? Her mother's company is a major business partner of my husband's company. Does that mean it's a key business partner of the company where my son works? Exactly. But whether your son works there or not is irrelevant. What will you do if your actions cause my husband's company to face financial difficulties? I was also surprised by this unexpected connection. The wife of the president had become friends with my mother recently, having seen my photos at our house and recognizing me. Moreover, when my mother-in-law called my name while serving the coffee and snacks, she realized who I was. However, I had disappeared before she could speak to me, so she planned to talk to me later. Unbeknownst to my mother-in-law, she had shown how she bullied me to the wife of the president. I'm so sorry. That was very rude of me. In a flustered state, my mother-in-law apologized to the wife of the president. However, the wife of the president was not willing to forgive her. If you are going to apologize, shouldn't it be to her? You've said terrible things and hurt her. And to make a pregnant woman do such hard labor. What kind of sense do you have? Apologize to her right now for the awful things you've done. With that said by her, my mother-in-law turned toward me with a vacant look and muttered, "I'm sorry." The wife of the president said, "I'm feeling ill, so I will be leaving now," and began to prepare to leave. The other guests were surprised by the situation but decided to leave as well since she was going. My mother-in-law collapsed on the spot, muttering, "It's over." Watching my mother-in-law fall apart, I felt a bit of schadenfreude. After that, my mother-in-law drastically changed her attitude in a distasteful way. "Please, could you tell your mother that nothing happened? I had no idea you were the daughter of such a distinguished family." I was completely disgusted by the kind of person my mother-in-law was. "Please stop. I've been treated terribly by you up until now. I can't just pretend that never happened. Also, you've always belittled my mother, haven't you? You weren't interested in what my mother was doing at all, were you? You didn't even remember why we ended up in a single-parent family, did you? I will never forgive you. But if you don't forgive me, it could affect my son's future." "What are you talking about? I would never speak ill of Jim. The only one who has caused me suffering is you. Jim has done nothing wrong. In fact, I have already explained everything." My mother was furious when she found out how I was being treated. The wife of the president, knowing how angry my mother was, decided she would never associate with you again. Her friends seemed to feel the same way. Also, I recorded the conversations when you were verbally abusing me. "What?" "Not all of them, but since you insulted me daily, I have gathered plenty of evidence. I have recently obtained a medical certificate, and I will sue you with this." "What?" "No. By the way, I have already spoken to Jim about this. He agrees that I should sue you and he wants to cut ties with you as a parent." "No. Jim would. You have done something unthinkable as a human being. Isn't it natural to be shunned by everyone? I don't want to stay here any longer, so I will be leaving. My mother has said I don't need to hold back, and she has prepared a room for me at her house." By the end, my mother-in-law was in a daze and seemed not to hear my last words. She had angered people she shouldn't have, and now no one comes near her. Thus, she spends her days alone and lonely. Meanwhile, I returned to my family home and later gave birth safely. A healthy baby girl was born, and both my mother and her new husband celebrated joyfully. Then, after completing his overseas assignment, Jim returned home safely. He was overjoyed to meet me and our daughter. "I'm really sorry for the hard times my mother caused you." "No, it's my fault too for not speaking up and bearing it alone. Don't worry about it. From now on, I will always be by your side, Alyssa, protecting our precious family. Yes, let's make happy and fun memories together as a family of 3. My husband and I embraced each other. Then, with broad smiles, we watched our daughter sleeping peacefully.